The Joyce General Store by Wayne Smith. We wandered into the old store, gazed up at the weathered sign, faded paint, wood windows with runny glass. Climbing the wide front steps, my feet seemed to fit into the hollowed footprints left by years of climbing customers as they came into the store looking for supplies. Once inside, the entrance looked well traveled too. The narrow wooden floorboards, once flat and smooth, are now cupped and dished. A mottled shade of gray marks the footpaths around the store, and at every step the floor creaks underfoot. Hobnailed boots worn by local loggers have left their marks in the floor. Dimples and holes are everywhere. Oh, the stories of those floorboards could tell. If only they could talk, I thought. The shelves carried only a little of most things you might need, a bit of hardware, some groceries, and amongst the meager supplies was history, for walls and shelves were interspersed with artifacts from the past. An ancient chainsaw with a massive 8-foot blade, the kind used to cut through enormous old-growth forests of the past, hung like a prized fish on the wall, up above the canned goods. Various tools, long lost from the trades, sprang up amongst rows of vegetables. Novelty items seemed to rise up everywhere. I moved slowly through the aisles, forgetting whether I needed milk or was it eggs. The thought came to me, how old is this store? Perhaps I should ask. The grocer, a tall elderly lady, became my historian.
This store is the oldest working grocery store on the peninsula. It was built in 1914, and we have had a post office here for, well, nearly as long, she said.
That's marvelous, I said, and I love your collection of historic facts. Everything is wonderful, and there's lots of stories here, I thought. The day was getting on, and our holiday to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington was drawing to a close. I noticed as we were leaving the store a large family group gathered at the counter around a concerned-looking middle-aged lady. She was scratching a spot on her bottom. All eyes and ears were trained on a bearded man, now wearing an old cowboy hat pulled low over his eyes. He stood at the counter with the troubled traveler, giving her his prognosis on her itchy area of concern. The hair began to prickle on my head as I listened to his account on spider bites.
The spiders here have a very powerful venom, he was saying. The spider dissolves its prey and digests the fluid inside its victim by giving it a wicked flesh-dissolving bite. I can tell you if a human is bitten, the skin and flesh around that bite can be seriously damaged.
The idea made me cringe, and the discomfort within the group began to rise noticeably. Shuffling nervously on their feet, they gave what support they could to the now terrified tourist. Suddenly a thought came into my head. Perhaps I knew what was troubling the lady. Was there a red rash around the area? Did a tick bite you? If you did notice that, you could have Lyme's disease. You must save the tick for testing, as the disease is very difficult to detect in humans. This added bit of news only seemed to increase the anxiety level for the poor lady. And our local cowboy hat advisor seemed to appreciate this added bit of knowledge, though, for his eyes danced merrily with this new specter of dread. The tourist shuffled uncomfortably, perhaps fearing the worst. After a moment of discussion, a decision was made. Someone must examine that bug bite. All eyes now focused on the floor, and then in unison all looked up to the tall lady behind the counter. Would she please be so kind is to have a look and perhaps offer some sort of remedy. She looked solemnly down at the pleading eyes. Offering what help she could, she led the traveler behind the counter. Her pants were lowered while all backs were turned. Examination made, she stood up frowning. "I don't think it's anything serious. You could see a doctor. But I think this bottle of lotion here will help you feel much more comfortable." Relief swept forth as we all left the store. The tourists piled into their van. The bearded gentleman tipped his hat, still wearing that wry grin. The grocer carried on helping the next customer, and the floorboards creaked their goodbye. Witness to yet another story. This one won't slip between the cracks like the miner's pieces of gold. It will remain as one told for the Joyce General Store.